Thank you for tuning into Literary Blend, a publishing podcast. I'm your host, Demi Michelle Schwartz. There's no perfect recipe for chasing a dream in the publishing industry, but I hope the conversations on this show give you the ingredients you need to bake yours into reality. So let's flip the page and get into this chapter of Literary Blend. Hi friends, welcome back to Literary Blend. Today's chapter is called The Cozy Mystery Coffee Shop. And joining me for a chat in the Cozy Mystery Coffee Shop is Carmela Dutra. Hi Carmela.
Hi, Demi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and chat with you today.
I'm super excited you're here. So excited to chat with you as well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. I'm in my countdown phase of my book is coming out. We're in August? Yeah, my book is coming out next month. Oh my gosh. So yeah, that's kind of where my mind is.
Amazing. So before we dive into our chat, we are in the Cozy Mystery Coffee Shop. So what are you drinking? What's the drink of choice?
It's a pour over. I'm all pour overs, and there's a coffee shop here where I'm at called Phil's, and that's all they specialize in is different specialty pour overs. So I am finishing up the last dregs of my filtered soul. It's sweet and creamy with oat milk, and oh, it's delicious.
Amazing. I personally don't like coffee, and I know that's completely backwards coming from an author. So even though it's 50,000 degrees outside, I'm drinking my hot chocolate.
No, I love hot chocolate. I do. That has its special place for me at certain times. And I mean, I'm actually used to people telling me they don't like coffee because I'm one of the few in my immediate family who likes it. So I'm the oddball in my immediate family.
Amazing. Sweet. So let's dive into our chat. But before we get into the cozy mystery convo, I would love for you to share a little about yourself and your journey in publishing.
Okay, so I actually started off as a children's author and illustrator. That's what I did for several years. I worked with school districts. It was a lot of fun. And then, pandemic happened. And I think, like a lot of authors, that's kind of where things shifted for me. And it became an opportunity of, I have all this time. Let's do something that I've always wanted to try. And I did. I always did want to try writing something more than just 1,000 words. So during that time when the world was shut down, I ended up crafting or trying to craft a story. And I first started off with a sci-fi, which was horrible. I don't know what I was thinking and why I went that direction. But I did. And that it worked out though in the end because it gave me that permission I needed, I guess, for myself to be like, okay, I can do this. This isn't as scary as I thought it would be. And then from there, I ended up writing my cozy mystery that I ended up querying to agents and I signed with.
Amazing. So what drew you to the cozy mystery genre?
That's actually mostly what I read. So again, going back to why I wrote a sci-fi, I don't know because that's not my favorite genre, but like 80% of my bookshelf is mystery or cozy mystery. So I've always loved the how a cozy mystery, it's that fun story. It's kind of it's got the community. A lot of times it has food and it touches on serious topics, but it doesn't also bring in the gore because I'm a little bit of a scaredy cat when it comes to what I read. I don't want to be scared, but I definitely want to be intrigued and trying to solve the whodunit. So that's what I really like reading. And that's what I ended up writing.
Yeah, that's amazing. I admire authors who can write the cozy mystery genre or the cozy fantasy genre because I write thrillers and I also write fantasy, but my fantasies lean darker. The fantasy I'm currently querying right now was plotted as a cozy fantasy. And then when I started drafting it, I was like, there's absolutely zero chance I can make this cozy fantasy. That's not going to work. I just write darker in general. So shout out to you. What tips do you have for anyone who wants to write cozy genre and is struggling to keep that lighter tone?
I would say if you are kind of struggling a little bit, maybe take a step back and pick up some cozies to read for yourself and kind of get a feel of how the authors have crafted that book. There's different ways that you can do cozy. There's different things with it. There's the culinary cozy, which is what I write. There's cozies that focus with animals as the theme. There's paranormal cozy mysteries. So there's a whole bunch of different kinds with there. There's even some mashups that are starting where it's romance meets a cozy mystery. So to be a good writer, you have to be a good reader. So I would highly recommend going to your library, checking out a bunch of different kinds of cozy mysteries and dive into those and take some of those points that you notice, how those acts are developed, those red herrings, kind of keep an eye on those. And I think that would probably help anybody who's in that field wanting to write those.
Yeah, exactly. And this goes for any genre. Reading in the genre you want to write is so important. So let's pick apart some key aspects of a cozy mystery. First, I want to start with a character. So, as someone who reads a lot of cozy mysteries and has one coming out, what do you have to share on crafting a compelling and genre, uh, meeting genre expectations for a cozy mystery character?
Well, your cozy mystery, your main character is going to be an amateur sleuth. Whether that amateur sleuth is a veterinarian, a librarian, a barista, you can make your sleuth anything that you want him or her to be. They're usually typically females. I have read a couple where it's a male sleuth, not as common. Nothing wrong with that. Just I just noticed that that's not as common, and so there's usually very personal, high stakes involved for your sleuth. But at the same time, they also have their other life, what they're doing, what their job is. So you have those other plot points that are running alongside that you have to weave together to make a compelling story.
I love that. And I love what you said there about the personal aspect of it and the stakes because when the protagonist chooses to solve the murder, maybe they stumble upon the dead body and they want to solve the murder. Well, they're just not going to solve it because they're curious, like, oh, I found this dead body. I wonder what happened. Like, we need to see the personal investment. And so, characterization, I think, is so important, especially not only with like the quirky aspect they might have, whatever shop they own, their hobby, like that's a part of their character, but in terms of them wanting to solve the plot, we really need to see their personal investment and what is motivating them to do so.
Oh yeah, for sure. There has to be that strong motivation there because otherwise it's like, why are they doing that? I mean, yeah, usually the sleuth is nosy. I mean, honestly, who of us aren't nosy? We see an ambulance on the side of the road, we see a cop car, we all slow down and rubberneck, right? And that's what your sleuth is. But there's also that real like deep-seated personal, like why did that person drop dead in their bakery? And why are they the last one standing over that person? Why are they the ones who found them? How is this dead body going to reflect on them, on their business, especially if they're also the one who's the prime suspect or their family member is. So that's one of the things that I also do really like about the genre is there's this balance that has to be struck for the cozy mystery is it allows us to also explore some of the very real human motives behind it, which tie in to our protagonist: jealousy, greed, betrayal. And we're able to do it through the lens of empathy and oftentimes entertainment, because a lot of cozy mysteries, there are those entertaining factors that go with it.
Perfect. Love that so much. So, next about the setting, the cozy mysteries I've read, the setting feels like a character. It's such a cozy atmosphere, and it's typically like a very close community. Everybody knows everyone. So, what tips do you have on compelling settings for cozy mysteries?
Oh yeah, definitely. You are spot on when you said it's like it becomes its own character. That backdrop of the cozy mystery really does set the tone for also how the series is going to play out. So for me, mine is a culinary cozy mystery. It's about a food truck run by a set of fraternal twins. So for me, food isn't just the theme in my book. It's a sensory anchor. I use that as a way for descriptions with pastries, home cooked meals to help ground the reader in this fictional town. And then you bring in the other characters because so many in these books, you're going to find characters swapping recipes, neighbors sharing a casserole, just as likely as you are going to stumble upon a dead body. So the food for me really is this universal thing that ties through my book. Sometimes the food plays a role in solving the crime. So thinking about that theme is going to help set the tone for the whole story.
Exactly, and I think the other thing too, looking at the setting, is these are typically places that are super cozy, picturesque, the kind of towns you could not imagine something terrible happening. And so when a murder happens and it shakes up the whole community, it's interesting because we go from the kind of status quo, perfect life at the beginning to this massive chaos, and then at the end, it's resolved back to the cozy vibes in the town where everything's all resolved and tied up in a pretty bow. And I think too, like with the setting, when you're looking at a series, this is a place where readers are going to continue to return to again and again and again. And so from that aspect as well, developing the setting in a way where it feels alive and it feels like a character, it feels like a place that readers are immersed into, that's definitely going to transfer across the books in a series too.
Yeah, I think 100% because like you were saying, they're that cozy, that small knit, close community, and I think that's also some of what really engages readers in that because like if let's for example, let's say you're at a potluck or a festival, it's going to be very jarring if all of a sudden somebody drops dead after eating a bite of a deviled egg. But it happens in a book. There's something about that becomes very entertaining. Like how did something so wholesome all of a sudden turn into my seat partner all of a sudden dropping dead in between dishes, right? Um, so there's that part that adds to the entertainment, but then there's also for me like the comfort in knowing that it's all going to get wrapped up at the end, and you're going to get that I guess kind of like a pretty little bow of how you start off like you said your sleepy town, your small town, your close knit community. Life is great. The murder, the sleuthing happens, but then at the end, you know that something like positive is going to happen. You're going to have everything wrapped up, and your sleuth is going to be going back to the way life was before.
Yeah, no, amazing. So let's talk more about the crime aspect. So with cozy mysteries, we don't have the murder on the page, we don't have gore or any of that, but we do need some kind of level of anticipation and the tension to keep readers turning pages and continuing to raise the stakes. So from your experience writing cozy mysteries, cannot speak on this because my books are intense. How do you go about keeping that reader interest and continuing to raise the stakes when we don't have these drastic, intense things happening on the page?
Yeah, that's such a good question because and I have so much admiration for you and how you do that because like from writing like a thriller or even writing that darker fantasy, you have to create that almost chill factor to a degree with your readers to and a lot of times too like with thrillers it's a ticking clock or the shadowy villain that helps drive the tension. But in my case, like with a cozy mystery, the culinary aspect, bringing back the food, it might be a sabotaged fridge or a stolen recipe or a suspicious lack of nutmeg that should be there, the missing spice bottles. That's the tension that gets added into there. Like the stakes start to feel personal, and that's how the secrets start to build. Is coming in on that very personal aspect for my sleuth is how I try to do it.
No, that's amazing. And again, you mentioned the personal aspect. From your personal reading and writing experience, would you say that cozy mysteries are more character driven than plot driven?
I think it can go both ways because yes, there's the side where cozy mysteries can be viewed as a light fluffy read, and sometimes that's true. Sometimes they can be that palate cleanser in between books, but there's also that other side too where they do dive into some of like deeper serious issues and talk about important things like justice and walking that line of not leaning too far into the darkness that needs to be addressed because you have murder that's happened, but you don't have the gore on the page, but you need to address the real issues behind it, the motive behind it. And some of them are some serious motives, whether it be feeling pressured of just the daily life of anxieties, trying to keep up in your family, your work, or you're being blackmailed. But you also have to make sure that your sleuth isn't too dark because it's not that thriller side. So it's that fine line of walking, bringing in those darker, sometimes heavier subjects, but still balancing it with a lighter feel. And sometimes that lighter feel, if it's a culinary, is served with a side of mashed potatoes.
Yeah, and this goes back again to just reading the books in the genre because as you're reading, if you're feeling super compelled and keep turning the pages, but there's not like a crazy murder happening on the page as we wouldn't get in a cozy mystery, but you're still compelled, you're still invested in the characters, be mindful when you're reading. What is the author doing in this book that's making me want to keep reading? And when you pick up on those little things as a reader, those are things that you're going to be able to bring into your own writing.
Yeah. And so, like, for me, with my second book in the series, again, like, the murder's not on the page, but the topics and the themes that were discussed was the there was extortion, there was blackmailing happening in the book, there was a corrupted individual who was leveraging their power to get what they wanted from small business owners, and they didn't care who they hurt along the way. And so, as my main character, her name is Beth, was going through trying to, figure out what was happening and getting the backstory and how this person changed, and that's what she starts learning over the course of time, is that this individual wasn't always that way, but they started changing and things started going to their head and they started thinking more of themselves. And then they used the power that they had to allow it to corrupt themselves and take advantage and pressure other people.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. So the next point I want to touch on is clues and red herrings. So this is important for any kind of crime fiction, whether it's cozy mystery, more of a traditional mystery, thriller. This is something I need to really focus on too, making sure that the clues are there for the reader, the red herrings are there for the reader. Because for me personally, the most disappointing thing is reading a mystery or a thriller and knowing who the killer is within the first like few chapters, and it's like, why am I reading
Yeah.
this?
That did happen to me recently with a book. Yeah, I know that feeling all too well. And I was so excited. And I was like, oh, really? So then I actually skipped ahead. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. And then I'm like, no, no, no. Yeah, I was right. So I know that disappointed feeling you're talking about.
So, what are your tips for weaving in those clues and red herrings for the reader to keep them engaged and guessing along with the protagonist?
So I'll be honest, that's something I still do work on. I actually just turned in my developmental edits back to my editor because that was something she flagged me on. Is some of my red herrings were way too obvious, and then there were some that were way too subtle. So I had to really think about how I could rework that to give just enough clues, but not too much. Because I'm not trying to like lay it all out like, here you go, here's everything you need to follow, these little breadcrumbs to get to the end. So something that I try that seems to be working so far is, alongside red herrings, I'm planting actual clues. So kind of like a magician, you have the action happening over here, but you have the sleight of hand happening on the side. So that's kind of how I try to layer the both together, and that seems to be working.
No, that's great. And the one thing I wanted to add is that just from a personal perspective, when I'm going in and I'm plotting one of my thrillers and I know who the killer is, every single time, like, I put them in a scene, I'm like, but it's so obvious. Like, if, to me, it feels so obvious, but it's not because the reader doesn't know. But one of the main things that I try to keep in mind is that I often tell my editing clients too, who write mystery and thriller, is you need to make sure that all your key players in the story have clear motives and clear goals to where the reader can go, okay, I can see why they did it, or I can see why they could be the one. If you make it to a point where you're putting too much focus on one character, that can be a little obvious. And on the flip side of this, if you have the protagonist acknowledge the possibility of all the other characters except for one, to me, that's waving a flag like this person they're not thinking about is definitely the person. And so giving equal weight to all of the suspects is definitely a way to keep it from being super obvious and keeping the reader and protagonist guessing.
Yeah, definitely. And then also remembering too that, a murder typically happens within the first 25% of the book. You want to be meeting all of those individuals within that first 25%, ideally, that could also have motive too, especially your killer and some of like the main key players. So if you have your victim, but you don't meet the killer until the last two chapters of the book, where was that person all along? So making sure that you're having everybody there and, like you said, spreading that around, because yes, that is so important to make sure everybody has a clear stake in the game.
Amazing. So we touched on several of these elements. Before we dive into the queering side of things, are there any final points you would like to make on the craft side of writing a cozy mystery?
Have fun while you're doing it too. Because I mean, you should be having fun while you're writing it. For me, something that really helped was learning how to plot because when I first started, I didn't plot and that was to my detriment. My agent ended up teaching me the fundamentals of plotting and I fully embraced that and that helped me so clear to have a roadmap from start to finish. Still leaving room for the fun side stuff to kind of happen as I'm writing, but having those clear steps, making sure that these beats are hit really helped me as I've continued to write within the series to make it easier and not have to do as much back end work and constantly redoing my work.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely a plotter and definitely have fun along the way. It's definitely that balance between, for the plotters out there, knowing the beats, how you're structuring the story, but also having fun. And to the full pantsers, shout out to you because I could never. Even when I was more of like a planter, I guess you would call it. When I wrote my first couple books, I did not plot the entire thing the way I do now, but I still knew the key points I was hitting. But I could not imagine going into a story with like pretty much no clue. So shout out to all the pantsers. So now I want to chat about your querying journey. If you can give some insight into your experience querying specifically a cozy mystery.
Yeah, so I spent 3 years querying agents. And one thing that I did really learn that I share with everyone is know your genre and know where you're going to land in the market because that's going to help you with your query letter and also know what those agents represent. Something that I learned was not all mystery is the same. So making sure that the agents you're querying are looking for cozy mystery because a cozy mystery is not the same as traditional mystery. It's not the same as detective, hard boil, and check that, make sure because I did query agents who just left it as mystery, but I didn't do all of my research, really deep dive, and then to find out later they don't represent any cozy mystery. So that was, unfortunately something that I learned. As long as you learn from it, I don't think of anything as a mistake myself, but that's something that ended up not to say a waste of time and a waste of the agent's time, but it could have saved time. Let's go with that.
No, I completely agree. And I think that goes for any kind of subgenre with any book you're querying, really. Because, for example, right now I'm querying my fantasy. And, there's some agents who say, I want epic fantasy with court intrigue and dragons. And that is not my book. My book is more grounded, it's more character driven. And so querying my book to that agent would probably result in a rejection because it's not this epic high fantasy with a bunch of kingdoms and dragons and princes and princesses and stuff. So I think it's so, so important to even like really read not only on manuscript wish lists and stuff like that, but if you can, like look on Publishers Marketplace, or if you don't have an account with them, see if you can find a friend who has a Publishers Marketplace account to say like, hey, I want to query this agent. They represent my genre, but I'm not sure the kind of books in the subgenres of that umbrella genre that they represent. Can you look at Publishers Marketplace and let me know? I'm sure they will. I'm always happy to look at Publishers Marketplace for people. And so just doing as much research as possible to put yourself in a better position. Not only making sure you're querying an agent that represents your genre, but looking at the kind of tropes they like, the elements that they like, and also looking at the things they don't want to. Like a lot of agents are starting to put anti-MSWLs. I'm seeing those way more frequently this time than the first time I queried.
Yes, I have seen that.
Yeah, and that's I found is like super, super helpful. So look at those as well.
Oh, I agree. I wish that there had been more of that when I was querying because that would have been really helpful. Just like I also wish I had a friend like you who had a publisher's marketplace account because I didn't have that. So I used manuscript wish list. I stalked online. I really did. Like especially, I was stalking on Twitter because that's where a lot of agents do hang out is online. And I used Query Tracker a lot too. So Query Tracker was really helpful for me. And what I love about Query Tracker, especially for anybody listening who's just starting to hit that point to query, is it's a free version. You don't have to pay for anything, and you can use it to submit to agents. Keep a list of who you've submitted to, rejections, responses, and if you want to have more features unlocked or have it where you're cataloging multiple books at a time that you're querying, last time when I did it, it was only $25 for the yearly membership. I don't know if it's still $25,
It
but I
is.
know it's even.
Yeah,
It
it
is
is.
okay. Yes, so it's a great
Yeah.
deal, and you get a lot of resources with it. You get videos, you get weekly emails that tell you like where agents are that have opened, agents that have closed, new agents who have been added, or agents who are even no longer in the industry. So I found Query Tracker to be really helpful.
Awesome. So, just to kind of wind down on our chat before I have you share a little about your book, what are final thoughts you would like to share about cozy mysteries as a whole?
I think it's a really fun genre. I love it. For me, it's one of my favorite. I think it offers a lot of diversity for readers too, because there's so many different themes, so many different topics, and so many different settings that go with it. So if you're looking for a little bit of a lighthearted read, but still interested in the mystery element, the whodunit, but you don't want something as intense as a thriller, I think a cozy mystery would definitely be a way to go to try it out.
Amazing. Perfect. So, can you please share a little about your book coming this year?
Yeah, I'm so excited. So, my book is releasing on September 9th from Crooked Lane Books. It is entitled A Murder Most Foul. It's about a set of fraternal twins who run a chicken themed food truck named called Clucking Good. They inherited it from their late aunt, and they enter a food truck cooking competition, a reality TV show. So think Only Murders in the Building meets The Great Food Truck Race, if you're familiar with those shows. And that gives you the whole feel of what my book is about. And unfortunately, the elimination round takes on a literal meaning when a contestant is found dead in the back of their truck. And of course, where it becomes personal for my sleuths, Beth and Seth, she was the last one seen having a heated argument with our victim in the parking lot.
Everybody read this.
And there are recipes included. So if you like chicken wings, there's chicken wings included in the back recipes, and my mac and cheese poppers. So, and then also one of the fun things too, each of my books in the series does include recipes, but you can even make them boneless chicken wings too, and basically like little chicken bites.
Amazing. Well, congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited, and it's been a fun journey. And then just to see the writing community online is really supportive. So to be meeting different individuals from different backgrounds, different genres that they write, and all cheering for each other has been so just. I love it. It's been so welcoming.
Absolutely. Amazing. So, let's wrap up with your plot twist. If you were a protagonist in a cozy mystery, what would your fun hobby be?
My fun hobby. I feel like it'd be something with, excuse me, with coffee. I'm definitely like a food lover and coffee connoisseur at heart. So I would definitely have something with food driving me. I'm very food motivated in real life. So I feel like my protagonist would be very food motivated, maybe like sampling. I don't know. Oh, a food critic would be really fun too. I don't know. That'd be my hobby, my little side thing. Something with food or books and cats and coffee. That's a lot of side stuff. And gardening. Yeah, a lot of side stuff there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Can you please share with everybody where they can connect with you online?
So you can find me online. My Instagram handle is author Carmela, and same thing across the board. Facebook, I'm author Carmela Dutra. On Twitter, author Carmela. Threads, author Carmela. So pretty easy. You can find me on my website, carmeladutra.com. On there has all my social media links, and I even have a blog series for authors who are querying, sharing helpful tips, query letter, and links that I use that helped me when I was querying. So any way I can pay it forward to other authors who are in the query trenches, I offer all of that on my website to try to help others.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. And listeners, thank you so much for joining Carmela and me in the Cozy Mystery Coffee Shop. If you enjoyed this chapter of the show, please consider leaving Literary Blend a review and giving it 5 stars to help others just like you discovered. Also, if you have friends in publishing you think would enjoy the show too, please pass it along to them. Thanks for listening, and until we flip to the next chapter, happy reading and writing.